sent 4 of our people to a nearby town to scavenge what they could. And only 3 of them came back. And the one that didn't was a father. He had a daughter just like you. And her dad was taken from her. Turns out he was murdered by this crazy man. And get this, that crazy man was traveling with a little girl. You see? Everything happens for a reason.
We interrupt this program to bring you...
All right, everybody, my name is Kevin.
My name is Adam.
And I'm Julie.
And we are the Real Movie Guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Real Review, the series where we review and discuss all your favorite movies and TV shows. Today, we're continuing our Last of Us journey with Episode 8, When We Are in Need. Ellie crosses paths with a vengeful group of survivors and draws the attention of its leader. A weakened Joel faces a new threat. All right, guys, it looks like The Last of Us is continuing the trend here. You know, it's funny because I'm going to start having bad things to talk about with the show, and I feel like I'm really, pulling at straws sometimes because, you know, Episode 8 was a really good episode. It was a really great, episode. I was waiting for this to happen, obviously, from playing the game and whatnot. You know, we got to see Ellie kind of mature very quickly in this episode and become one step closer to the Ellie that we're going to see in the future. And again, I thought it really handled everything well together. The emotion, I do have some issues with it, and my issues are, I'm kind of torn, so I can't wait to really talk about it with you guys, either where my issues are coming from and what's really happening here. But before we get into too much of that, Adam, what's going on? What'd you think?
I thought it was a good episode too. I do have some issues as well, so I'm interested if our issues coincide.
Get some tissues for those issues. That's what we gotta do.
Yeah. But I do think that I thought it was a very good episode still.
Yeah, it seems like it was a good episode. It's one of those things. But again, we'll see. We'll talk about it though. We'll put a pin in that. You know, as I like to say, put a pin in that. Julie, what's going on? What'd you think?
At first, this episode was a little mixed for me because I had just had one big gripe that I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later that I was kind of holding on to. And then once I let it go, I really sat back and I really enjoyed this episode. There was a lot of great character work, suspense, action. It had a little bit of everything in there. Yeah, you know, there's definitely some issues to be discussed, but overall, I thought it was a great episode.
Yeah, and I don't know about you guys. I think, Julie, you kind of, nailed it right there a little bit for me, where I have to let some things go, I think, with this show. And it's really hard, especially when you have something to compare it to in any kind of medium, right? Whether it's a comic book, video game, other source material, novels especially. I know, Julie, even you had some hangups like with Harry Potter and stuff like that, where there were things that were missing and that weren't there that, were in the book but weren't in the movie. And I'm starting to see that more and more with The Last of Us. But The Last of Us, the show has its own issues. So before we talk about all the positives here, I know you guys like the negatives. That's what all YouTubers like. So we'll talk about that part first, I guess. The pacing has still been a really bit of a problem for me. And some of that has to do with, and we kind of hinted at this, we had a conversation that I really liked at the end of the last episode when we were talking about how there was a really big lack of infected in this series. And I think here I felt it more than ever. Adam, is that something that you were going to talk about?
Yeah, that is one of the issues I had because...
All right, go ahead, because I think we're on the same page, so I'll let you... What was your big issue with this one, you think?
I mean, that's definitely... Okay, so I don't want to compare again, but in the game,
right,
Ellie fights with David, and that kind of builds up a bond between the two of them.
Right.
And that kind of more establishes this relationship like, oh, you know what, maybe this isn't that bad. And then eventually it starts to deteriorate, and then it rips it away, right?
Right. And I love how you say that because that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
We're missing a key piece of that emotional puzzle there between these two characters. The show's expecting us to like David just right away. and trust him with Ellie, and they kind of do that, but I felt like it was sloppy, didn't you? I feel like I really didn't feel that connection there that they were really trying to go for. Just having him be a pastor, I guess, was the substitution for the zombie scene.
Yeah, I don't know. Was that supposed to make us be like, oh, you know what? He's a pastor. He's this.
He's a
good
man
guy.
of religion.
Yeah,
I trust that guy.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I don't know. I immediately I was getting. I mean, maybe it is because I played the game, but I mean, anybody could really see like, oh, bad vibes.
Right.
Bad vibes.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't get bad vibes, I think someone's got to check their bad vibe radar there, because there was definitely something going on. And it's tough, right? Because I was saying the same thing even when I was watching it with Julie. I was saying, is it just me from playing the game that I know this piece is missing? Because I'd be curious to see someone that didn't play the game if they felt the same way as we do. What do you think, Julie? Do you think other people would see that too? Or do you think it's just something that we're hypersensitive to observing?
I mean, I think we're definitely more sensitive to it because it's going to be there in the back of your mind where you're going to want to compare something. My brother recently over the weekend binge watched the whole show, so he was caught up as of last night, and it didn't really seem to bother him as much as that, oh, there's supposed to be this whole big thing with infected coming. He's like, yeah, he goes, but he agreed, like overall there should be more infected in the show, but he thought if it happened every episode, that would get stale. But I was really disappointed. I was really counting on that scene to happen. I thought for sure, I'm like, oh, it's going to happen. They're in the setup. They're right where they need to be. And like you and Adam both said, that really just kind of took the punch out of that moment when, I mean, the actor that plays David did a really good job. Like his delivery was so good, especially when he's talking about, I believe God will provide and good things do come. And then he drops that bomb on her, oh, a couple of my people were out looking for supplies and were, attacked by this man with a girl. But that impact in the game is just so much more monumental because they just went through that trust building exercise, if you will.
Yeah, the line delivery. Because it's funny, because Adam, I think you agree too, the line delivery's there. But because it's almost one for the game, the way he even says the line, like, oh, we're looking for a man that killed one of ours and a girl was with him. And then it's like, oh shit, oh shit.
You do still get that little.
And you do, but it doesn't mean as much because I already didn't trust him to begin with.
I think that this episode is probably the most accurate to the game's dialogue, like in entirety itself.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of a fault to that, which I do want to talk about, just a little bit. But
I like how you even bring up you don't trust him, and for me, it's not even the game, like knowing the game and knowing not to trust him. But I wish that because they show before he even meets Ellie, they show him with his flock, and there is tension among his flock, and he's kind of got some snippy remarks and is a little rough with that. I think he slaps that one girl. I think that comes later, but still. So you already kind of like, he's a pastor, but you know that there's an edge to him. I feel like maybe it would have been more successful if it showed him as that kind and giving pastor, my people, as opposed to, his right-hand man, which was played by Troy Baker. Like the two of them have kind of a tension going and they have this back and forth before they even meet Ellie.
Right.
Well, even then, even without knowing the game, you just know something's off. And I think it could have been more successful if you didn't have any inkling.
So let me pose this question then. So Kathleen, I always go back to her, but she was just one of those things. They did a terrible job with her because we had her for 2 episodes, right? And they really didn't do a good job building her character, in my opinion. She just had a couple dialogue rambles and like, oh, I'm bad. And we were trying to relate to her and her brother dying and boom, we were done. And that was kind of the end of her character. Do you think this would have been served better if we had a 2-parter here instead of in that part? Like say we had a 2-part episode here to build up maybe some of this David situation, maybe building trust in another way. If we couldn't go the infected route, maybe they could have done something different to have Ellie and David have more of a relationship, then have the turn hurt that much more. Do you think something could have been done here to have changed the story?
I wouldn't say 2 episodes, but I would say, I don't know what the actual runtime was, but I would say a longer episode. Okay. Like if you did an 1.5-hour episode, maybe.
Right. What do you think of that, Adam? Are you on the same page with that? Or
yeah, I think we need more of an establishment with these characters. I mean, even Sam and Henry, Kathleen, even Tess.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
Joel
true.
too. Like, I just need more time with these characters for that, all of their bonds to kind of get solidified and then get torn apart.
And
Because like that's what the game does so well.
right, and I feel like in the game you're able to experience it just through like combat and wandering the world and
Right.
having these other interactions. The show, I hate to say this, sometimes almost feels like a Cliff Note version of that world that we experienced. And again, it's not bad, and I don't want it to come across that way because I think the show does an excellent job. This episode did a lot of really good things. I think we're just more hypersensitive to it because we've experienced the game, we've played the game, so we're going to have a little bit harsher critique on it than I think someone that hasn't. And I don't know. I don't know if that would have helped. I wonder if maybe we had maybe an extended to a two-part episode because it sucks because the last episode, the flashback episode, was good with Ellie having her whole backstory and everything, but it kind of took away some of the bite from this episode. I feel like just this whole show, and we'll talk to this I think at the end when we kind of like reviewed the series as a whole. Pacing's just not their thing. Sometimes I feel like we're either breakneck or we're at a snail's pace, and they feel like they just can't catch the right balance. And I wonder if that just does come from adapting a video game in general. I wonder if that is part of the problem sometimes.
Yeah, pacing and just time. I mean, I'm used to the new standard of TV shows being 10 episodes. We're not even getting 10 episodes.
No,
That's true.
And then you have these varied episode lengths where you have an hour and a half, and then you have the last episode's under 50 minutes? That's
Right.
insane to me.
What do you think of that, Adam? Do you think there's something there for that?
I mean, I'm trying to go through my head like what could possibly happen in 50 minutes because given the current track record of the episodes, not much is going to happen.
Right.
In terms of like, I don't even know if we're going to see any more infected in that last episode.
I know, especially with
Just,
what we know is to come. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be there.
yeah, I don't know. And I really do wish that there was, just maybe 15 minutes extra on each episode just to
Yeah.
establish a little bit more of a relationship with all the characters, I think.
And that's what part of me wonders if, committing this, again, this is something we probably should save more towards when we talk about the series as a whole. Part of me just thinks I think we needed maybe another season. Like they shouldn't have committed one season to adapting the whole game. And I think there is a problem there that is worth discussing, but we'll save that when we get to it. But again, the rest of this episode, it did a lot of really good stuff, I think. Again, the cinematography was like almost 1-for-1 for the game at times, which I thought was beautiful. Especially the way they captured how the enclosure was very, solitude. A lot of people were gone, especially when the wind was blowing. They had like giant wind machines like kicking up the snow at Pedro Pascal, and he was trying to like run through it. They did a really good job with the atmosphere in this episode, and the performances I think were really great too. David, I don't want to undersell him. He sold the dialogue 1-for-1 for between the game and transferred it to the show and did a great job. He was menacing, he was creepy, even a little creepier, I want to say, in some points. I don't know if it's just because it's happening in real life. It just felt that much more tense. Troy Baker, the original Joel, which is weird that they kind of mentioned that. I thought like the after post show they would say, oh, here's the original voice of Joel. They never said anything because he did a really good job. I kind of wish he had a bigger role. Did anyone else kind of feel maybe it was a little bit of a missed opportunity for him in this episode?
Yeah, I feel like they wanted to because, again, they were kind of hinting at that tension between him and David, but then it never really came to anything, or you didn't really see where it was coming from. I guess you could say, I don't even know what his character's name was. I guess he didn't agree with what David was doing, but then at the same time, okay. And then at the same time, he was kind of mad at David for not being more severe with Ellie or Joel. Like, I don't know. It was just kind of like a mixed character with his motivations. So it felt like there was potential for there to be more. It just wasn't fully, again, maybe with another 15 minutes could have been further explored.
Right. And again, I think that, Adam, I think you agree too. It has to do with just the time management of the episode and even some of the previous episodes. They could have maybe fleshed out these villains a little bit more. And I think it might have helped this story in particular, especially because for Ellie, this is a huge pivotal moment for her.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like if they could have, trimmed off some other backstories of other characters, Kathleen, and up to these guys, because this was it's a monumental moment in the game too. Like this is a big whole scenario that happens, and it's definitely a turning point for the relationship of Joel and Ellie too.
Right, because I think they kind of said it best where this episode you're waiting for Joel to save Ellie the whole entire episode, and that's like in the game too, because in the game you actually play as Ellie and you have to experience this whole terrible situation, and the realization is Joel's not coming for her, or he is coming for her, but he's not going to make it in time to save her, so she has to save herself. And I really like the whole tension here, and you get to see all that built up aggression, all that pain, all that like inner violence that they've kind of been hinting at in Ellie come to a boiling point when she attacks David at the end while the site's burning. The roof is literally falling down on top of them because it's catching on fire, and she just murders the crap out of him. I don't know how else way to put it. And it's just so brutal because you do it from a first-person perspective, and she just keeps lashing and lashing and hitting and hitting. You just hear the noises of the stabbing of the knife, and then she just walks out, and she's like shook to her core. And then, the popular scene, obviously, Joel finally makes it to her, and he hugs her and goes, "Oh, my baby girl." Now, that's a pivotal point for Joel, too, because now he's truly accepting Ellie essentially as his daughter. That's what he used to call Sarah, so it's like him embracing her, saying, like, "You're my daughter." They captured it brilliantly. I mean, that scene alone, I think, is worthy of the admission to this episode, because, again, the build-up I thought was fantastic for it. But the other pacing things just, I don't know, it just seems like a mess sometimes, and I really hate to say that about this show.
I also want to compliment too. So while Bella Ramsey has that she really, the whole episode, so much was put on her, her banter back and forth with David before the villain turn. And then when she's, in the jail cell, and then that final killing strikes, so impactful, such a great performance. But Pedro as well, once he finally comes to and realizes what's happening, and he's trying to figure out where she is, and he's got the two guys, and "Where on the map?" and then shoots the guy. I believe him. I love that line. Like, your answer better be the same as him. Kills the one guy. Well, how are you going to know? He goes, "I trust him."
And what did you think of that, Adam? Because that was another one-for-one scene.
That was great.
I have some thoughts on it. What did you think of it in particular?
So I was really hoping that they were actually going to do that scene, because that is one of my favorite scenes in the game. Right. I love that scene. Okay. I thought Pedro did a great job with it too. I just feel like the game, Joel, is this much more intense.
I know, and that's exactly what I was going to say.
It's just like the way that he does it in the game is so much more. It has a little bit more of a seriousness. Like, Joel's out to kill, right, and he's going to do anything. This one, it's like, yeah, it's there, but it's not as like. And
I think I know the reason. And again, I think it has to do kind of with our issue, kind of with the whole show. It's the way they presented this Joel to us. We've been saying since the very beginning, this Joel's kind of lacked a little bit of an edge sometimes with some things. Right. Maybe we wish he was a little more hyper aggressive. The violence for me, and again, I know they've said in previous interviews, Neil Druckmann's even said he kind of wanted to turn down the violence for whatever reason in the show, making maybe love more of the central theme and some of those other different kind of things he was going for. I don't know if that necessarily was a good idea in some instances, because scenes like this, while they're absolutely cool and they're awesome to see the scene, obviously, it doesn't feel as impactful as I want it to be. Again, not that it's bad, but there's just a little bit of an edge missing to it that I really would have liked to have seen at that point.
Yeah, it's tough, because I do like this Joel too, especially because we're getting that much more of a relationship expansion with Ellie and him. But like, I don't know, I miss the brutality from Game Joel.
Right, because Game Joel's not afraid to take somebody out, no questions asked. This Joel, he's kind of been hesitating left and right a little bit.
Yes.
And I don't know if I like that. But, I think overall, it seems like we're being kind of negative on this episode, but I think it did a really good job.
All things considered, right, all that aside, I did like this episode. I thought it was a great episode, especially because of how true to the game it was. I really did like it.
And that was my one thing, actually, and this could be just a me thing. At some points, it felt a little bit too like a video game, especially towards the end scene where Ellie was fighting David. I don't know if I was just having like flashbacks to like crawling around the furniture in the burning room. It felt like almost like a video game, like peeking around the corner, seeing if he was there. And it felt too gamey at times for me, just a little bit.
I did make note that when Joel was first like getting up, I guess,
Right.
and they were David's men were told to like search the houses.
Yeah.
I immediately noticed. I was like, "That's really funny." They like are walking around like the game characters did.
Oh my
Like they're
God.
skulking around, slowly opening the gates. I was like, "That's exactly like it is in the game."
You know, and it was always my issue with the game too, is like Joel like heals kind of miraculously quickly. For, you know, I guess a penicillin shot was more than enough to just get you going and be like, I'm good. I'm gonna go take out all these guys now. It seems like it was like a matter of a couple hours. He was be dying, and then he's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it definitely seems like he healed quicker in the show though than he did in the
Yeah,
game.
yeah. I don't know. Again, that was part of the problem. I think because of this last episode and this episode, we didn't get enough of Joel like kind of writhing around. We were just like, he's hurting. Ellie got the penicillin. A couple hours later, I'm up. Oh, I'm ready to go. I'm gonna go take out guys and say badass lines and stuff like that. Granted,
Yeah,
he didn't make it to Ellie in time. Granted, but it still felt a little quick. You know.
Powered by love.
And powered by love. I also do like how like Ellie has to actually like help Joel when like he's like hugging her and like they're you know the whole thing is over. She's actually helping him still like walk even though she had this like traumatic experience. He's still having a hard time. I don't know, something about that was funny. Like, all right, I'm glad I got here for you. Now help me go. We gotta leave.
Yeah, like thank God it's over.
Yeah, thank God. But no, this was a great
Save yourself,
episode.
thank God.
This was a great episode. Again, I think Bella Ramsey, I think it was really on her to carry this episode. And you know, for all the naysayers out there, I've seen some people say they really don't like her. They don't find her to be. I think she's the right Ellie. I really do think she is. She's kind of embodied the character in the ways I've wanted. And you know, I can't wait to see what she does in the future with the character if she continues to play her in the next season and even the next episode. There's a lot to happen. I'm really curious how they're going to wrap this up. Whether it's going to be the same. Whether it's going to be different from the experience in the game. Lot to come, but as far as this episode, I think we're ready to give our final scores. I'm going to give The Last of Us Episode 8, When We Are in Need, a 9 out of 10.
Ow! Ow!
You little cunt. Let's see what I go tell the others now.
Ellie,
What?
tell them that Ellie is a little girl who broke her fucking finger!
This is another really good episode. I know I sounded kind of harsh during our review, but I really did enjoy the atmosphere of this episode. It built up those pivotal moments for me. Ellie having to survive on her own is like a really interesting idea, especially the fact that Joel isn't her knight in shining armor saving her. He's just the one to comfort her at the end. And they almost come to that conclusion that they do need each other and they're the other part in their life that they need to finish the rest of this journey. It's a great episode, some great performances. The issues, while they are issues, I don't know if it's necessarily an issue just with this episode specifically. I think a lot of the issues we have are just as a whole for the whole series. So for me to like just put it on this one episode, I feel like it's a little unfair. That's kind of where I'm coming at with this score. But Adam, how about you? Where do you stand with this one?
I'm going to give The Last of Us Episode 8 a 9 out of 10 as well.
Go ask him, he'll tell you. I'm not lying.
No! No! Shit! Jesus! No! Why the fuck did you do that? He told you what you wanted. You motherfucker, fuck you. I ain't telling you shit.
It's okay.
No.
I believe him.
No.
Listen, we could sit here and nitpick it all day, but at the end of the day, like given, you know, everything that we are given from this show, it's enjoyable to watch. I really do enjoy seeing it in a different medium, you know, seeing actual actors and seeing how, you know, a different side of the story would have gone. And I do really like it a lot. And it was a really good episode.
No, I agree with you. Again, it's just a lot of our nitpicks. I think some of our issues are just from our experience with the game. And sometimes I think you do have to turn that off and just take the material at face value, what you're given. And if we do that, I think it's a 9 out of 10 show for me still right now. It's still hanging on there. And that's impressive, especially to be 8 episodes in and still be this good. Julie, how about you? Where do you stand?
I'm going to give The Last of Us episode 8, When We Are in Need, a 9.5 out of 10.
No! Get off of me! Get out!
It's me.
Get out!
Look, it's me. It's me. It's okay.
But I'm...
It's okay. It's okay, baby girl. I got you. I got you.
Overall, really great episode. It gets that 0.5 specifically for Joel Pedro Pascal delivering that baby girl line. Can't ignore it, can't fight it. I wanted to do the 10. I had to rein myself back because it's not a 10. But Joel saying baby girl,
No, it's
a great episode.
I'm sure it's not because it's Pedro Pascal. I'm sure that that
No, it has nothing to do with it.
women everywhere swooned right then when he said it. But it is. It's a really emotional moment that they captured it perfectly, especially the cinematic visuals of it. I think were beautiful. Just the embrace was just the pure focus of it and how intense it felt. Again, I can't wait for the finale, guys. We have one episode left. I can't wait to see how they wrap it up. But anyway, thank you guys for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin. That's Adam. That's Julie. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. We'll catch you next time. If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys, you should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.